So, approval of agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Approval of meeting minutes, regular meeting, September 19th, 2018.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on September 19th, 2018.
Is there, oh, okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, on to public participation. That was quick. All right, on to number 7, communications. Amy, do you have anything?
Nope.
All right, and the only thing that I have is get your flu shot at the town hall meeting room on October 24th and October 30th. One is from 10 to 12 on the 24th and 2 to 4 on the 30th. And when you get your flu shot, you receive a $25 gift card. Not sure what the gift card is to, it just says gift card. And most insurances are accepted. All right, on to monthly reports, town financial.
I don't specifically have anything. Tax collections is good. It's what we would be expecting this time of year. We're somewhere around 18 million that's been collected.
As you go through, could you say what page we're on? If we're on our page,
Okay,
like,
8A1
yeah. A3 is tax
has the
collector.
$18 million. Oh, no, it doesn't. That has the monthly amount. 18A2 has the 18 million. 18,191,647 collected, and for the fire district, we've collected $646,000, but we have paid them the whole $670,000 that they get, because the agreement is we pay it in full, and then we collect it throughout the year. Any other tax collector questions? So on the revenue of the $19 million we've collected on page 8A7, 18 million of it is tied to the fact we've gotten very little other money. Any other questions on revenue? The expenditures. On page 8818, we have spent $6.3 million of our $39 million budget, and the Board of Ed has spent $2 million of their $23 million budget.
Got a long way to go. Lots of months left.
And no transfers are needed this month.
That feels like a miracle.
CNR, there's a couple differences you'll notice. We found out that we were not including new revenue in the report. So the Selectmen CNR capital is really the unallocated $41,000 of interest over the past 4 or 5 years is in that CNR capital. I think we should change the name back to unallocated, because it really should go to a meeting, or at least the Board of Selectmen meeting, to reallocate that. Those are interests that have come in on the funds that are in there. So I think we really need to rename the account. I don't think we need to add account, but I think we should rename it unallocated so people know that that's available to allocate if something comes up. Has to stay in CNR though. The other 2 places we had changes were in the open space account, which I can't find now. Oh, it's on the town planner. So that one went from $217,000 to $268,000, and that was the money given to us from developers in lieu of having the open space requirements in their subdivision. And the same thing with the sidewalk. The sidewalk changed by about $10,000, and which is also in town planner on that same page, 8A19, and that is The $10,000 is same thing. Sidewalks, apparently the subdivision requires sidewalks, but if you go to a development that is on streets without sidewalks, they can do a formula and pay some nominal amount of money to not put sidewalks in. So it's kind of like an in lieu. They don't put sidewalks in, instead they pay us a fee.
And what do we do with that fund?
Repair sidewalks
What's
in
that?
other places that have sidewalks.
Yeah. All right, okay, we can-
So
we
those
can
are
put-
the 3 changes. If you took this and laid it next to the one that you got last year, or last month, the only 3 changes would be the CNR capital up on the top under selectmen, which is really unallocated, and then both the sidewalk and the open space under town planner. Everything else would be exactly the same. But it was discovered when we started digging into open space and what the number really was. Because there was questions about what was available for a couple, one was a grant match and one was for a private purchase that the Board of Selectmen were interested in making. So that was a project that one of my staff did. It went back all the way to 2014 and worked their way forward. I'm very confident in the numbers that are there now. So on the other side of financials, the capital has told me basically that don't expect munis all in one year at $124,000. So that there would be some, they wanted to talk to Board of Ed to see if they had any interest in combining with us and going together all in one software. And they said they would do it over some period of time. So there's 2 other things that need to be addressed on our side is the ability to talk to tax, to the tax software, costs $4,000 to write the bridge and $500 a year after that.
So it's 4,000 for the bridge?
Yep, to build the bridge. So that would mean QDS tax could then be imported into AccuFund. But even if we switch to munis, QDS would still charge us to build the bridge, which already exists in other towns, specifically for us. So whether we pay the $4,000 now to build it in AccuFund or we pay it later to build it in munis, it's still the same $4,000 and $500 a year. So
But we have to pay it twice, what we win?
I think so,
So you have to pay the $4,000 twice?
I think so.
AccuFund and munis?
yes. So unfortunately, QDS has the market on that. We don't really have a choice. They have to program their software to be able to export so that we can import it in the right format. So I don't think we really have a choice in that. And seeing munis is several years out, I think it's prudent to spend the $4,000. But I don't know where we would get the money. And I just am bringing it to you guys. But there's another one coming. There's something even bigger coming. So that I don't know the dollars attached to. So I'll just share that that's what I know so far about that. The other one is we got letters from the state of Connecticut that our uniform chart of accounts is not uniform. There are audit differences between almost every account we have on our general ledger. So the whole point of going to AccuFund was that it was going to give us this uniform chart of accounts. So we've been told that we're not uniform. They did an audit and there's all these things that need to be fixed. When I called AccuFund to find out what we need to do about it, they told us it would basically be like doing a whole server change because all those accounts would need to be relinked to the new accounts where they belong that are in conformity with the uniform chart of accounts. They did not give me a price.
I was gonna say, but that seems, well, that's the problem. You need a price to compare. Because if you're gonna look at this $4,000, then you're gonna look at the $500 a year, and then you're gonna look at having to fix AccuFund to be your chart of accounts. You really need to know what the whole package is to be able to say, okay, this isn't working, this is not money,
But that was
this is
something I
not
had
money
no
well
idea.
spent.
I had no idea that we were not. The whole point of selling of AccuFund was that you would be
Right.
in a uniform chart of accounts.
Yep.
So when I first got my thing saying we weren't in compliance, I called the guy that I had worked with in Canton and said, what do you mean we're not in compliance? We're on AccuFund, which was UCOA. The whole point of it was UCOA. And
Right.
Bloom, who sells AccuFund, is who did that whole UCOA project. So he said, I don't know what to tell you. Let me look into it. And he came back and he made them audit every town that went to AccuFund to see whether they were in compliance, and the bulk of them are not. When I called AccuFund...
Oh, they must love you now. No.
So when I called AccuFund, they said, well, we can give her the guidance, but we can't pick what account she set up and how she structured it. That was her choice. But my staff will swear to you that that was not the case at all. That AccuFund picked the account that got established,
Yeah.
so that it would be in conformity with the co-op. Obviously, I wasn't here and I don't know
Yep.
anything about it, but that's what I've been told, but I do not have dollars yet. So that will be a work in progress, but right now, with annual report going on, and
Yeah.
audit going on, and budget starting, there
Yep.
is no way that's gonna be a front
Right.
of my, top of my pile. I did tell somebody today that my plate was about to topple over with all the stuff going on right now.
Like top run it over.
So,
Yep.
I said I can't take any more. But those are both things that will have to be addressed at some future date.
Yep, okay.
So that's what I have for financials. Does anybody else have any questions on those?
Nope.
What did you say the open was in town planner?
The open space?
Yeah, where is
That's
it?
in lieu of open space. So if somebody builds,
She
oh, on the
says-
CNR, page 8,
Yeah.
8A19, maybe? 8H19.
Almost clicked under
It's
it.
under CNR fund.
So you need to go farther down.
She said it was in town planner. No, I
It
know-
is.
I know the CNR.
But
Yeah,
in the
it is
CNR
town
fund,
planner.
it has by department. So the selectman has the unallocated and the town planner has both the sidewalk and the open
Oh, it's
space,
right
which are
there.
budget in lieu.
Okay, different page, thank you.
All right?
That made me feel a little smart.
Okay. All right. So all good on that? All right, so we are on number 9, Board of Selectmen updates and referrals. Bob?
Okay. I'll pass this down.
Should have told me I needed mittens and a scarf.
We have not had heat for 10 days,
My
or
God.
air.
Yeah, it's been
The
okay for the
compressor
last
broke.
10 days. Tomorrow's,
Tomorrow you guys are gonna be
Sorry.
freezing.
it's gonna be interesting.
It was a little warm
You're fine.
in the beginning, because
Yeah.
it happened to be our 80-something degree days.
Oh, true.
So we had a little overheat on the front side, and now we're gonna have a little over cold on the other side.
So what I passed out is a questionnaire that we're going to present at the Board of Selectmen meeting tomorrow, and it's going to be put online, and this is by the Charter Revision Committee. So they're going to put out some questions, and then they want it back by November 20th, and on December 6th, we're going to have at our Board of Selectmen meeting a forum on the charter revision, so we'll advertise it so if people want to come and discuss the charter revision and make some suggestions, and they'll have a talk about what their feedback was on this survey.
And what was that gonna be, a forum?
Yeah,
And December 6th?
December 6th at the Board of Selectmen meeting. Okay, another thing that Amy can feel free to chime in with, because she and I and Len Norton sat down with two people from representing Scout Hall, Al Floyd and Paul
Anderson?
Anderson, and we discussed the contract with,
The 99-year lease.
yeah, the 99-year lease, and let's see how many pages it is. It's, you know,
Shut those doors. And the noise.
It's gonna get
guess it's
chilly
about-
more, isn't it?
about 6 pages. But I'll read one paragraph, and this is the paragraph that we're discussing. It says, maintenance of building. During the term of the lease, it shall be the leasee's responsibility to pay for all utilities serving the premises. Leasees shall provide for the full maintenance of the premises, including but not limited to all renovations, non-capital repairs to the building and the exterior maintenance, including parking lot and all landscaping. The leaseor, which is the town, shall be responsible for maintaining the driveway serving the 3 parcels, including the premises, including snow plowing of said driveway. The leaseor, that's us, shall be responsible for all capital repairs during the term of the lease. And the question is, what does this lease mean by capital repairs? And what prompted this discussion was that early in the summer, the compressor broke in their HVAC. So they came to us and said, well, you have to pay for it. And they brought this out, and Amy questioned whether that was maintenance or capital repair. And interestingly enough, in that particular exchange, they had someone, they wanted to fix it that I believe was costing $13,000. And Len Norton went out and got a bid in, it was about $9,000. So he said, well, if we're gonna have to pay, we're gonna use our guy, because we don't pay $13,000. That's not how we operate in the town. We get 3 bids, and we take the lowest. And he, but they went with his guy, but we compromised. We said, okay, we'll give you half of what we would have paid, and that was a compromise. So we had a meeting today about this, like I said, the 2 representatives from Scout Hall and 3 from the town. We also had the town lawyer on the phone, Bob DiCrescenzo, and we talked about this. We didn't come to a solution, but I think we could say we're moving forward. We talked about things that we said that the siding, roofing, windows, and doorways would be our responsibility. We kind of agreed on that. I guess resurfacing of the pavement, I think that we kind of agreed. I'm not sure where that was, but there were some that there we didn't agree on. One was the floor. They said the Scout Hall floor is going to need replacing, and we felt that was maintenance. They felt it was a capital repair, and also it's the HVAC system. We haven't really resolved that either, so we're talking things out.
Well,
Can I share a few things first?
if that ends up that way, though, they have to go through the capital improvement committee. It's not going to just be, we need this done, and they get it done. They're going to have to follow the process.
So I have a couple things that I have some major issue with. Capital is supposed to improve something. Add useful life, energy efficiency. So capital repair in itself is almost like an oxymoron. You're either capital improving something and making it better, or you're fixing it.
Right.
So to me, it's pretty clear. If it's improving it, that would be on us. But their lease says that they'll do renovations. So we've been meeting every couple weeks since September, something. We've had 3 meetings or 4 meetings, because that first was the compressor was a problem and who's going to pay for it. Well, then we find out in one of those meetings that their contractor has shut off the gas to the unit, so they have no way to turn the heat on. So, but they don't know why he shut it off. So in the last meeting 2 weeks ago, I said, you need to go find out why he shut it off. Well, apparently he shut it off because the heat exchanger was bad. So then there was another big discussion, same thing. Heat exchangers, 13 grand if we use their guy. Our guys can do it for 8,600. Almost 14 grand, 13.7. Our guys can do it for 8,600. So we got in a whole debate with the lawyer on the phone today about the purchasing policies, that they can't just pick their guy and expect the town to pay for it. That the town has procurement rules, and those rules need to be followed no matter, if it's town money, no matter where the source of the money is coming from, they have to follow the town rules. So I don't care if it's a grant or a donation. If you're using money that's been given to the town through a taxpayer tax bill or from some donation or some grant, there are rules that have to be followed, and they do not follow those rules.
That is, we've already been through this when they went and fixed the door.
Yeah, that was a
didn't
start.
follow the process. You weren't here yet.
No.
And didn't follow the process, and they were told clearly that we will pay for nothing unless you follow the process.
Okay, but let's consider this. Right now, in this building, there's no heat, as you will probably experience as time goes along. We also need an air compressor. Now, that is not specifically in capital improvement to get an air compressor for this heating unit.
Well, it's not a capital improvement anyhow, it's a repair.
It's a repair.
It's a repair, so, but that's okay, that's
Yeah.
okay. But, so it really has to be in the repair budget for the town properties, which is Lenny's, or Public Works. So if we had to take on the responsibility of paying for compressors and heat exchangers at the, or any other emergency that occurs that might, that's why we're having a debate about what's a capital repair. If we are going to be responsible for what, quote, capital repairs, then we have to somehow put more money in Len's or Public Works maintenance budget so they can help maintain the Scout Hall in case of emergency. So you gotta, when we go through the budget process, we'll have to think about that.
So my
Well, but-
contention is those repairs to the HVAC are really repairs. When your compressor goes, you replace it because if not, you don't have AC or you don't have heat, plain and simple.
Yep.
So my contention is that that is not the town's responsibility. You are renting it, you are getting all the money for it. It is your responsibility to keep that building up. The floor, I have a concern with because they do things more timely than the school does. So think of our school, we just went to CIP. They're looking for a replacing of a 65-year-old floor. Here's Scout Hall saying, hey, we got a floor that's 20 years old and we don't want to just retile it. We want to ceramic tile it and it's going to be as much as 40 or 50 grand to retile it in ceramic. And I'm like, this town would never even consider paying 3 times as much money to ceramic tile something, and we wouldn't do it in 20 years. We would do it when we absolutely couldn't do anything else.
Yep.
So that's part of my problem with the whole thing, is that their idea of when things need to be capital improvements and redone. So one of the things they brought forward is they want to build a vestibule on their door, because apparently the doors that are there leak. But they want to build a whole big addition that they've come to the CIP group with for $40,000, which will give them additional storage and a second set of doors. I'm like, hey, that's a renovation. That contract says that renovation is on you guys. So we are having a huge contention of who's responsible. The problem is the building's now 20 years old. But the other problem is if we replace their tile floor now, we are on the hook for the next 4 times over the next 80 years that lease exists.
Right.
So there are some, who's responsible for what and what's it mean for the town? And, I don't willingly want to sign on that we will replace their tile every 20 years for them. We would never do it in the town building. We do it when we absolutely can't do anything else. Because that's how we do it. And on a 2% budget, you can't just pick and choose that you want to do something like that. So I am the one sitting at the table going, nope, nope. I just feel like there's way more that should be borne by that group that built that building and want to maintain it and want to earn all the income on it, on themselves versus on the town. And part of it is, supposedly there was some dollar amount attached to it at some point, but my problem with that is that dollar amount, even if it was 10 grand, by the time 80 years comes now, 10 grand is not going to mean the same thing as it did in 1995 when we signed this lease.
Right.
So some background is a lot of it came through the CIP. They did come to CIP, but they came with a tile price of somewhere between $15,000 and $50,000. The 15 if we replace it with the kind of tile that's on there now. The 50 is if we did ceramic for them, which is what they really want. But the compressor, the same thing. It needed that compressor that they were getting a price of $13,000 or $15,000, and they said, well, for the 15, we're just going to replace it for 50. But you guys are paying for it because now it's a capital project because we're replacing it instead of repairing it. So I think it's a bigger question and how it flows in and how it flows into everything than just saying, well, we'll cover the HVAC.
Right.
Because if we're going to cover the HVAC, then it's going to be repaired, and if the repairs are really on them, why are we paying for any of it? We have agreed to pay approximately half of it for this next heat exchanger that they won't have heat if it doesn't come, and it's already on its way to us. It was ordered on Monday. So, but I have a concern about the path we're going down and what it needs and where it goes. I do think we're making progress. The lawyer was very interesting today because he said, well, I have to tell you, they were saying the landlord's responsible for all of it. If you rented somewhere, the landlord would be 100% responsible for everything.
That's what the Scout Hall was saying.
Scout Hall is saying. The lawyer today said a ground lease for 99 years, the lessee is responsible for 100% of it. So they got a totally different story than what they've been saying to us today from our lawyer on the phone. And I will say, he was worth every dime that we paid for that hour with him on the phone with us today.
Because is it a ground lease? Is it
Well,
just
it's
for
a-
the
it's a
land that it
hybrid type
sits
thing.
It's
on?
kind of in between.
Yeah.
It's, okay.
Well, that's
They
what-
built the building, it sits on our land.
Yep.
They lease it back for $1 a year, but they keep everything. So every dime they get on any
Right.
kind of rental, they're keeping themselves.
Yeah, and let me say also that at this meeting that they agreed in a week to give us 3 years of financial information on Scout Hall. So we'll-
Because the lawyer required it and said for an ability to pay discussion, we really need 3 years of your financials. I had asked it when we first started meeting in September, I had asked that question and it kind of got blown off. They just changed the subject and went away. So it was very nice that it came from the lawyer that said, for us to go forward, you need to provide us 3 years of financials. So,
We're going to meet again in 2 weeks, so. we'll do that.
3 weeks, the 7th.
7.
2 weeks after we get their financials. Their financial due date to us is October 26th.
Okay.
And then our next meeting is November 7th with them.
That's
But
gonna
it
be
is Bob, Lenny, and I for the town side, and the 2 guys from Scout Hall on the other side. But it was worth every minute of the lawyer being on that call with us today.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very slippery slope.
Well, we just really want it really defined. You know, who said, you know, they said, hey, we gave you the building, and really it's all on you. We're gonna clean it and keep it up, but everything else is on you. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're not getting a dime
That
of it.
doesn't even make sense, because then why would we not get some of the revenue? No.
So then
It's like
somebody-
saying the
so
people
then
that rent
somebody
their places
jokingly
in
said,
Florida.
so can we give them back the building for $1 and let them lease it from us, the land? Right? Then the building's 100% their problem.
Yeah, true.
So, I mean, the building, if we do nothing in the next 100 years, is gonna be bulldozable by the time we get done,
True.
right?
Yeah, if you
So,
look at it that way.
so I wasn't sitting at that table in 1995 when they sat down and did that. And I can't really get a definition. I wanted to know what the lease definition was for capital repairs in 1995 when we wrote that lease, but really nobody knew. And I have a big issue that capital repairs really is an oxymoron and doesn't really mean anything. It's either a capital improvement or it's a repair.
Right.
You can't have a capital repair.
We've talked about this numerous times.
So them without doing our procurement process, they can't use their contractor just to use it like they do.
Right, exactly.
If it's going to become our responsibility.
Yep.
So,
Okay,
For sure.
next thing, and I apologize, I Xeroxed it just before I came into the meeting and it didn't come out the way I wanted it to. But it's all I got. So I'll pass that down. And what this, if you look at the bottom, you see the Scantic River. That's the Scantic River, and that thing that looks like 2 fingers sticking down is part of this Sabonis property that we're at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, which is tomorrow night, we're going to consider purchasing that with that open space fund. For $16,000, we can get 16 acres. And the American Heritage River Commission would like us to buy that land, and some of the selectmen walk the land, and they think it's a good thing for the town to have. The part with that place with a D on it there, that's the Sabonis property too that they gave us, and it has a park on it now.
so that's already this is already
Yeah.
town-owned?
Town-owned is D, and C is, it would be, I think the town-owned part is only like 5 acres, and then they give us 16 more acres for,
But that's not part of C. The 16 acres includes all of C?
all of C.
Oh,
That's it.
and all the way down to the 2 fingers? So what's the dotted line in between? Oh, the flood zone.
Yeah,
Forget it.
yeah, okay.
Perfect.
And then, if you, on the back is the thing that really didn't come out well. But I wanted to show you where it was, because if you look you can see the two fingers again on the other side, and then I put a black X in there, and that's where Mahoney Road is and Scantic Road, so it really goes from that bridge over the Scantic River down by Mahoney Road and Ellington Road, and from that bridge down to quite a ways down, the town would own that property along the river. So that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow night at the Board of Selectmen meeting, one of the things. Another thing I'll bring up is Calamar. Calamar has been in the quagmire, so to speak, for the last 3 months. Not much has been going on. But in the last week, a guy came in and sat at this table and talked to us. He was a person in charge of the Calamar project on the ground level, and he's the only one there. They don't have any workers, but he comes out of Buffalo, where I guess their home base is, and we talked to him, and we had some emails today, and people called us up, so things are going to start moving, I think, in Calamar. At least we've heard more in the last week than we've heard in 3 months, so that's a good thing. We'll see what happens. The trouble is it's winter now starting, so I'm not sure what they can do. And the final thing I'll just bring up...
Well, can I just finish
Sure.
that thought?
Sure.
The money we set aside for Rand to have extra help for Calamar inspections has all been spent covering him while he was out with his foot. He was out of commission. He broke his foot personally and was out of commission. So the money is pretty much spent, I think,
Yeah.
with the guy who's been helping from Berlin. So I'm not sure that if it gets busy, that we aren't going to be here asking for some way to cover that.
That's true, but I agree with you. Rand's healed, so, and there's not great building going on in the winter, so it would be more in the
Springtime.
spring.
But just so you know, that the money that we set aside thinking it was going to be Calamar hasn't necessarily happened that way. But I think everybody just needs to know that, because if there's an ask
Yeah.
later, I don't want it to be
No.
that nothing happened for 3 months.
Yeah.
Now what are you asking for money for?
Okay, and the final thing I'll just mention, it's just, I'm sure you're aware of it, but there, about a month ago, or maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, someone put in a request for a special use permit to build a gravel pit at 140 Wapping Road, so we have another 48-acre gravel pit on the horizon, which I'm not pleased about, but such is life.
And that's going forward, because weren't they going to dump toxic dirt
Well,
in there?
when the first came with the pit, with the gravel pit special use permit, they said they wanted to mine the gravel and then fill the pit back in with soil. And there's some question of how, if it was contaminated or not, from the dig from West Hartford to Hartford. The MDC is digging a tunnel, 18-foot tunnel underground, and all the stuff that comes out of the tunnel, they have to put it somewhere, and one of the places they're going to put it is in this 14-acre pit. But now they came back, last time they came to the board, because I was there, and they said that now they want to change their special use permit only to be the excavation and not the filling. So they backed away from filling the pit. They want to excavate it.
So how do we control that? If we give them a permit to dig it out, how do we control them not filling it back in? It's their land.
Darn good question. And
We need to make sure somebody asks that question.
Oh, yeah. But
Just because they removed it so they could get approval.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Doesn't
So
seem
how
that
do
way
we
because you were
control
gonna.
after the fact? I even asked, how do we control how much? They said, oh, it wasn't just going to be hazardous, it wouldn't be toxic. I'm like, who controls that and who tests that?
Yeah,
That
if
something
I
is
didn't know it is.
hazardous
If it doesn't
versus toxic. I
Stuff
mean,
going on with
contaminated
toxic.
soil is contaminated soil.
Yeah.
So,
So, that's just a heads up, that's not a Board of Selectmen deal at all. And that's all I got.
How does that work? Because you said that's not a Board of Selectmen thing. So
it's through the land use.
So they bought the land, it's through the land use.
So it's between planning and zoning,
And the-
allowing that special use.
So they could say no.
Yes.
Yes. So anybody have friends on the?
Well, why wouldn't they say no? Why would you even run that risk?
Well, because if they look at the zoning regulations, And there are zoning regulations for excavation and fill. And if you read the purpose, it's just what we discuss here. Why would you do that? But if you get into the fine print, it says if there is a pit built, then these conditions have to be met. And they are saying, well, we're meeting these conditions in the fine print. And maybe we're not meeting the purpose, but we're meeting the fine print. And so they're having a hard time. And they're also saying it's right next to the other gravel pits, so, you know, how are we different from they are? And so
Don't they have to change the zoning though to it too? Because it's not zoned currently
Well,
agriculture or something?
Yeah, and I'm not sure, now you're getting into what I don't really know, and that's the, half of that 48 acres is the
Tree farm.
tree farm, the Christmas tree farm. That's zoned agricultural.
Right.
The other half is zoned industrial, and it's crossed by the railroad tracks down there, so it's half and half, and so I'm not sure how the.
I'm thinking they need some kind of variance for that alone.
I don't know.
Can I
It's up to the
comment?
zone.
Sure.
My understanding is that planning and zoning, to have another gravel pit, if you use that term, they had to have been 2 miles apart, but in fact.
The entrances to that.
Yeah, but in fact, they changed it in planning and zoning to less than that, I think
Take a half a mile.
apart,
Yeah.
and which gives them leeway to do that, because there is another one that is less than 2 miles apart, it's just down the street. Why they did that, I have
That's
no
crazy.
idea. Why you would allow that. That just, I don't know what the thought process was to say, okay, well, let's reduce
Do you know how
it.
long ago that was?
Just at this meeting.
Well, no,
Just
it
recently.
was 6 months ago or so. That was before they
When they bought the property,
Maybe, but it was,
yeah.
it was before they came with the permit, I know that.
But it's after they bought the property,
Okay, I'm not sure.
so I don't get it.
It's crazy. Well, that's something that needs to be,
And unfortunately, we don't have a town planner right now.
yeah.
But, I mean, interviewed fairly shortly.
I know, but
Yeah,
things, that person that helps that commission make their decisions and does the research and stuff is really a vacant role right now.
Yeah,
So, which is concerning, that those kind of decisions are being made.
Right.
It's up to the people sitting at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they're experienced and pretty good, so.
But the decision to reduce the distance was when Lori was here.
yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought it up, Bob, because I think that's something that maybe needs to be brought to more people's attention, because it doesn't really sound like it's
Yeah, and
really kosher.
I'll say a little bit more. What we're fortunate in a sense, they came and presented their permit or request for a special use permit, and they had a deadline which has already been passed, but Joe Olet, the chairman of the board of the planning and zoning, said, well, you didn't notify all the abutters. There's a railroad track going right through the property. You didn't notify the State Department of Transportation. And they said, well, we did it a little late. And they said, well, it says here in the rules you got to do it before you apply for the permit. So now they've extended it for another 2 or 3 months. So the decision is not going to be made immediately, and with less pressure.
What's the name of the company that's doing the gravel pit?
That's an interesting story too. It's WSG. I guess it's Windsorville Sand and Gravel. It's an LLC, and that's owned by. When you go in and look at it, it's owned by D.A. Buck. When you find out, try to look up who DeBuck is.
Up steps there.
Oh my
It's not,
gosh.
it's not apparent who it is. But it's funny, the person sitting where Charlie is, who is the owner in a sense of the pit, or he's involved in, his name is Adam Westhaven. And I asked that question, we had a lot of questions. I said, who is D.A. Buck? And he said, that's me. And he owns another company called Red Technologies LLC, and that's a company that gets rid of contaminated soils.
God.
So things are starting to fall into place.
And the one that has gotten the permit has no assets, it's just a shell.
Yeah, yeah.
So if anything goes
So
wrong,
the
you
DA
got
Buck
nowhere to
has
go.
no assets?
No.
This is just like a red flag, many red flags, like going off everywhere.
Yes.
So do you know anybody on planning and zoning?
Well, you shouldn't have to. They should be like, ding, 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 ding. Well, Facebook, here we come.
It's a mess.
It's concerning.
It's beyond concerning. We already did this like how many years ago when they wanted to do toxic waste dump and everybody had to
Well,
fight
yeah,
that.
that was nuclear waste. That was
I don't care.
one step
Any
up.
toxic waste, and what do you, we're dealing with the mill, and
Yes.
you'd think we'd learn our lesson. Hello? Craziness. Sorry, see?
Yeah. I'm going to go, another thing, I'm going to go and look at the inside of that mill for the second time. I did it 2 years ago. And today I bought a Tyvek suit and a respirator. So I got a hard hat, I'm going in.
Is that on the 23rd?
On the 23rd. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, you should have a spacesuit, man. Some Tyvek suit. Bob. Gonna go in here?
Well, Chris Davis says he's coming with me, and we got a
Oh,
structural
Lord.
engineer, so we'll see.
Says Charlie did.
Yes, you can.
The wetlands
Somehow I
per- the
let
wetlands
everybody comment
permit
today.
Is there for the excavation, and at the time, it was for the placement of clean fill. So they put one load of garbage in there.
Oh,
They got no permit whatsoever.
I thought you were talking about the other thing. Well, that's what
Yeah,
I'm
that's
saying.
the same thing. It
That's
has
the
to go
same
to wetlands
thing. It's
before
gonna
it
get
goes to
open
planning
and then
and
they'll
zoning.
throw whatever they want in it, as long
So
as
they
they don't
can't
know.
throw whatever they want in there because there'll be,
Nobody to watch
the
it.
town will shut it down. That'll be the
Yeah,
end
but
of
who's
it.
going to watch them what they put in?
Yeah, who's gonna watch this?
Well, you'd be surprised how people show
No.
up in various places at sometimes.
I would be
A lot of
surprised, and who
people
pays
get
for
caught.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think he'd dare play the game. He's got a big facility down in Middletown. They load railroad cars with the waste materials. to
it?
get
Yeah,
rid
that's
of it.
hazardous to Middletown, yeah.
It's over in Portland.
Portland, yeah.
Yeah, right across the bridge.
Okay. All right, Board of Education. Oh, you were done, right?
I am done, I was,
Okay. Board of Education.
Wow.
Anything?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. And take a cleansing breath.
So, it's not as good of information as I was hoping to share. And Kathy's on vacation and Andy had a prior commitment, so I'm going to give an overview. If you have any specific questions, let me know. I'll get any specific information and we can certainly, we'll be back in November. So the short story is that we have a deficit. As of the last Board of Ed meeting, it was 91,000. And I'll tell you why. So last year, at the end of FY18, we had budget overruns for special ed tuition, special ed transportation, and substitutes. And we knew the special ed tuition was coming because students move in. We can't control that. I think you folks have all heard that conversation before, the way the funding situation is in Connecticut. When the student moves in, no matter what, you get the tuition cost, whether you've budgeted for it or not. So we had students move in toward the end of the year with high-cost programs and high-cost transportation, and that was on top of any students who had moved in during the course of the year. Special ed transportation was 70,000, which isn't that significant in terms of our budget, but it added to it. And then substitutes, we always overrun. We increase our budget every year. Every year, we still go over. But that includes, any maternity leaves that we have. Education is predominantly female. That happens, it's happening again. We had some personnel issues that impacted our subline. And quite honestly, when you get to a school year that ends on June 50th, it felt like everybody's using their personal days. So we had an overrun on that. So we ended up using, instead of carrying over $170,000 for supplies, we used that. And the grant money that had been identified through the audit, we used that to offset last year's budget. So we started this year with somewhat of a deficit. We were able to make up some of that funding because we did a budget freeze. So we've been very particular in terms of buying supplies. We made up some funding with hiring. We were able to get some very high quality staff who were newer, earlier on in their career, which helped the bottom line. So as of the last Board of Ed meeting, it was $90,988 deficit. So we will be talking at the Board of Ed meeting next Wednesday about next steps. But it's October, which is very early in the year, and we have had multiple capital, or just, I don't even know if it's capital, it's just everything. I asked Roger the other day, does anything work? We have had a furnace, we've had multiple hot water tanks, the fire alarm panel at the middle school. So we've had repairs already of at least $30,000 of things that pooped out. Roger will have the ages of all of that for me for our next meeting, so we can talk about what kind of lifespan we're getting. One of the hot water tanks was in the kitchen at the high school, and we did do an insurance claim on that, but we haven't heard back yet. We also had a tree fall in front of central office, which thankfully DPW took care of part of it. We had to take care of the rest. So just from a maintenance standpoint, the year has not started out well. So just FYI for now.
Alrighty. Was that it? Nothing good?
Let me think. No. There's a lot of very exciting things happening. I actually feel really badly that it's overlaid by a budget deficit because there's a lot of great work. The new band teacher, music teacher at the high school has done some great work. The kids were just at UConn yesterday to watch the UConn band and to get some training there. You saw them in the 250th parade. We just have a lot of really exciting things. The modular project, I think, is finished. The Board of Ed toured that at our last meeting. Everything looks beautiful. The Alliance Capital work is done except for the last bits of the auxiliary gym connector that's being finished. The gym floors look gorgeous. I mean, there's so many wonderful things that have happened, and we're excited about all of our new staff on board. We're excited about all the babies. I think we have 5 that are due right about now. So, but there's just this, overlay of the budget.
Yep.
So, but yes, there is a lot of good.
All right, so we are on to new business. Annual report and table of contents. So I guess I'll let you take this, Amy, since I have no idea what's going on because I wasn't part of the meeting.
Okay, so you're in charge of the annual report.
No way, really?
I'm not sure why.
Because of the charter.
I know, but
I don't disagree
I don't know
with
that
you.
it makes the right sense. If planning submits a report to me that says they did this, this, and this, I am not gonna have a clue
I know.
whether it
It's
is
ridiculous.
factual or even information that would be pertinent to be in an annual report. So it's kind of a weird place for me. I was not in charge of it in my past life, so I only had to worry about finance and putting the budget part of the pages and the audit part of the pages in there, things that I understand.
Mhm.
I was not the person that had to find a printer and pulled everything together and all that other stuff. So, but there was concerns. The meeting for the Board of Selectmen was about how it looked, how it was presented, and I do share some of the concerns.
Mhm.
There isn't a table of contents. So if you're specifically looking for something, I don't know that you're necessarily gonna find it. It isn't alpha, which is kind of one of the things that, if, you know, it goes from the first selectman's message to elected officials, to a building official, to the town planner, to the library, to social services, senior nutrition, the town clerk. So it's like all over the place. It's not, it's
How many did we order of these last year?
1,000,
How many were left over?
not that many.
No,
About
I'm
a box
serious
and
though.
a half.
How
I'm
many?
serious.
Okay, yeah.
Not
Where
that
did we
many.
put them though?
They're, I'm sure they're at the libraries,
Yep.
they're at the town clerks, there's some right out here
You know,
under the, but I don't think huge amounts.
yeah.
Is that your
No, I was
question?
just trying to remember. No, I was trying to remember where we put them.
So, I mean,
Do you remember?
I can't imagine it's not
I think
online.
that she, I would
I
say
just
to
did
the
the places
library.
where that would normally be.
Yeah.
Town clerk, library, maybe
What?
senior center.
That's not me.
And we pass them out here. Most of them go right out of here. Initially, we have the.
That we have the meeting that
meeting
they're actually
where
approved
it's
at and given
accepted.
out
Yeah,
at,
yeah.
or however
Oh,
many
yeah.
people come to that.
Not me.
So I have started to do work. We met with some of the selectmen and had a discussion over things they'd like to see differently. I agree with many of them. I put together 2 versions of table of contents for you guys. And one is truly just alpha. That whether it's a commission or a department, it is strictly alpha. The whole thing, which is in the package.
822 and 824.
And then the other things that I have put together is, I did put together a principals officials versus elected officials versus town staff. It lays out who the selectmen are, who the Board of Finance are, who the Board of Ed are, and then in general government, who is your chief of police, who is your finance person, who is your tax collector, assessor, town clerk, planning and development, community development, public works, recreation, building official, fire marshal, and then under education, superintendent and business manager. So it lays out the pertinent people that if somebody needed to get in touch with somebody who is either a elected board of the 3 big boards or a person that works here, they would know who that person would be. So the other thing that got put together, which I don't know if I made a copy, is an org chart. The electors elect these bodies, where the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance is, who the Board of Selectmen then appoints these bodies. And under there, on top of the ones that are specifically listed in the charter, there is also directors and authorities that are not listed specifically in the charter. So if you went to our charter, you would see town council, town engineer, tax collector, assessor, treasurer, all listed out in our charter. But there also this little paragraph that says, and it could be tree warden, town planner. So those are in this group, but as a down bullet, because they're not specifically spelled out in the charter like this row is. And then these are all the volunteer boards. This is where your American Heritage is, your Ethics Commission, your Commission on the Elderly is on there. So this would be East Windsor's org chart that would be part of this new format. I think it just cleans it up. And I'm thinking my finance page, I'm telling you what my actual budget was for 17-18, what our rating is for Moody's, how much bonds we have, notes we have outstanding, what the actual revenues were, the actual expenditures were. Then we have charts that take your revenues and do it by source. So obviously, it's going to show tax collections being the bulk of the money and these other small buckets, but letting know that there is still some percentage that comes from the state. So that if the state goes south, there's a number that we might have to worry about. And then on the expenditure side, we do it by category. What's public works versus what's public safety versus what's general government categories, type of that. So I think a lot of it is good things. I'm thinking that we would bring you a draft to your November meeting.
Which we have to discuss.
I know, but, so that's what my thought is, because it needs to be, the annual meeting has to be held in December, and these have to be available for it. So that would give us time enough to get to a printer and do that. But the printer, we have to discuss how we're covering that. This was done at Staples last year, to the tune of that couple $1,000s. But really, all we did was plunk information into things that were already there prior to that.
Yep.
So, so it would look a little different, but the prices are quite varied. The Board of Selectmen has done all the legwork to come up with prices. I did ask Bob today if he would go to Allied, who did our Board of Finance mailer, the budget mailer that we did,
Oh, yep.
and see what their price would be. But for a book somewhere in the 36 to 40 pages, it is somewhere around $3,000 if we go to anything printed, which his email is anythingprinted.org. I don't know where he actually is, but
They used to be here, but they moved,
I
right?
think they're in Wellington now. or
Yeah, they
Asheville.
actually did our 2013 annual report.
and then there's also the copy shop in Sophia's Plaza, which is somewhere between $4,500 and $5,000. Fees of $45 per hour for designing it. There's another one that Ellington uses called the Printery, and that one is about $33. It's $330 per page for 1,300 books that, no, $330 per book for 1,300 books that Ellington ordered. So if I take that $330 and do the 1,000 that we would order, it comes out to $3,300 with a $1,200 design charge, flat fee versus hourly. So that it really should be available for people. I don't know if it's state statutory requirement, but if you look at many others, they all have them. So I don't know if we're just missing that it's a requirement and we're not doing it, and it should be, but if you look at several of the towns, they all have them in there. And we do not currently have them in there. But there's other things, like I don't know that I would give 2 pages to the health, North Central Health. They're not even a department, so I'm not even sure why they would be in here. Versus if you need septic and sewer and the planner page, please contact North Central. I mean, we provided them a whole, basically a way to do their annual report on our dime.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of it, if you look through the table of contents, I kind of like the department versus the board one, which I think was the first alternative gave you in your package, because I think it's cleaner. Somebody wants to go right to the front and see who's where and what they're doing. Clearly, there's a lot of boards and commissions, and I can't imagine that we can't put 3 or 4 on the same page. I don't know that anybody needs to fill a page, but I like the setting up of these. So these are the main things, and a lot of these, I don't know that they're not in here, but they're not in here like in this organized manner. So introduction, which could be a letter from the first selectman, or it could be a letter from the Board of Finance. Ellington actually uses the Board of Finance to do the introduction letter. A description of the town and maps with all the boroughs outlined. Town meetings and abstracts of minutes. Principal officials, org chart, financial summary, which would be my audit pages tied to the budget. So this is what, by department, what was spent and what wasn't. It's actually 4 pages that are part of our audit anyhow. So I would be doing them for the audit, and we would just include them in here. And then by department, Alpha, Assessor, Building, Emergency Services, Fire, Fire Marshal, First Selectman, Human Services, Libraries, Park and Rec, Planning and Development, Police, Public Works, Registrars of Voters, Senior Services, Tax Collector, Town Clerk, Treasurer, and Water Pollution Control Facility. Those are truly our town departments. And then the second page is all the boards and commissions. So I think that makes the most sense, and those are alpha also. So that there's no question about where, if you're in the middle of the boards and commissions and you need to find an A, then you know you go to the front. If you need to find a W, you can go to the back. I mean, so I think I think it will make it easier reading. And the other thought was, if we meet this up, one of the selectmen thought that this could be something that could be handed out in a welcome package so they would have a resource on where they could get the information they need. So.
It'll be a way of marketing the town a little bit too, so.
So that's what I have to say about annual report.
I like it broken down by department and, or rather than all together, it does make it easier to find where here you kind of, it doesn't seem, you know, it's differentiated.
And I don't think we're in a position where we have to choose one or the other tonight. I mean, when you look at it and you guys approve it in November at the meeting, it will be where we'll have to really make that decision that, you know, what's going on, because within probably a week of that meeting, which has Thanksgiving in it, we will need to get it to a printer to get it back in time to meet a December meeting date, hopefully not Christmas Eve.
Yeah, no, that would be bad.
Yeah, so I think we can do it at our November meeting, but I just need you guys to know that it's out there, that, you know, maybe some format changes, things looking different, but I think it'll be helpful. Does anybody have any questions on that?
So it was meeting date for November. Our meeting falls on the day before Thanksgiving. Cool.
Which is the 21st.
Yes. So, 1 year we did it, 2 years we changed it. Amy would prefer we change it because she has to host many, many people at her house on Thanksgiving. So what day did we?
The only
what
day
did we
available
see? Yeah.
is the Tuesday before. So it's just the one day before. So
Yeah,
instead of
it's the
being
20th.
So instead of being on the 21st, it would be on Tuesday the 20th.
So are you guys okay with that? Me neither, and I hope I'm not hosting, so. Okay, so if somebody wants to make a motion to change our November meeting to the 20th?
I move that we change our November meeting date until November 20th instead of the 21st.
Second?
I'll
And-
second.
And the good news is, because that's more than 30 days out, I can actually file it, it can be a regular meeting.
Okay.
Oh, true,
Town clerk.
okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. On to unfinished business. I don't think we have any, do we?
We did not. Unless somebody else knows about it that I didn't know about.
Nope, me neither. Any comments, anybody?
I do.
I know. I was like, what do you think I'm looking down there for?
I just have a concern with our legal counsel. I know that now we've hired 4 different attorneys. I just am concerned, as I did bring up at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, about Mr. Yegeloff being now hired as a town attorney and him serving on 2 missions. I appreciate his time volunteering and such. I do feel it's a conflict of interest. Looking back at the last Charter Commission minutes, there was some discussion about legal, and he was inputting comments, and I just feel that if he's representing us, he really shouldn't be involved in making policy, especially with our charter. So I don't know if there's some way to get clarification as to when we are using certain attorneys, just so we know what's going on. So it's,
Oh, no, I agree with you.
I
I just heard about that, so that was interesting. Somebody approached me about that, and I did not come to that Board of Selectmen meeting, so I didn't know that decision was made. But I have to agree, that's a serious conflict of interest. He shouldn't be on any boards or commissions, not mattering whatever he's weighing his opinion on and getting paid for.
Yeah.
Getting paid for serving the town.
Mhm.
So, Bob, I mean, how do we find out how that works?
Well, I could have him go to the Board of Ethics and see what they say.
Good. I guess that's a good start, see what they say.
And we don't have a restriction that you can't be employed by the town in
One
your
would think
professional
we would.
capacity and still sit on a board.
You would think we would, but
Okay.
not that I know of.
Okay.
Too logical.
That does apply, though, if you're on the Board of
You
Finance.
can't
then-
serve on any
On
other
any
board.
other board.
But that's a Connecticut general statute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
okay.
requires that. And you guys do that anyhow. You have pension, you have Board of Finance people on your pension committee. So they do sit on the second board.
That's the only one we can sit on, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah. I agree with you. Huge conflict of interest.
I find it's necessary, if you're gonna be on the Board of Finance, to be at these meetings, to study these people, to see who's there, who's not there. I think this should be mandatory for all of our members to go to these meetings. I know it's inconvenient, but if I can do it, so can everybody else.
Yeah, you're in trouble. You good? You good? I'm good for now. For today. Yeah.
So the next
Um,
meeting date, I didn't have a date because I didn't want to put the 21st and have you guys vote on something different, so.
Moving. All right, so
So it'll be
motion
the
to,
20th.
motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Um,
I'm okay with that. Do we need to have this?
And the worst part is my long day.
I didn't understand either why the Board of Finance was responsible for the